If you're in favor of freedom of speech, that means you're in favor of freedom of speech precisely for views you despise. Otherwise, you're not in favor of freedom of speech.
Good evening, dear listener. You're listening to WHRW 90.5 FM Binghamton. This is Binghamton Review Live. We're back again. Brief robot overlord intermission there, but we're here to deliver some hard-hitting current events. So why don't we start off with the Jim Acosta story?
Yeah. Well, there was quite a bit of controversy recently involving CNN journalist Jim Acosta. There we go. Jim Acosta. And so what happened was, first he asked... So what happened was he was at a press conference with President Trump, and he got his press pass revoked after he asked Trump about things like the Russia investigation and I forget what the other one was. There was something... it was the caravan. That's what it was. So first Jim Acosta asked about the caravan, and Trump didn't really like that question. So then Jim Acosta shifted to the Russia investigation, and Trump didn't like that either. So Trump basically had Acosta's mic taken away, and he also revoked his press pass to get into the White House. And, you know, I understand. I understand that Trump. I understand his feelings on this. You know, I really do. But, you know, what I would say to him, of course, he's not going to listen to me, but is, okay, yeah, Acosta was being a bit of a jerk, but grow up, be a man. You know, like that's what I would say. Just it's not you can't be Mr. Manchild all the time. And you got to just he can't take any sort of criticism, any sort of negativity, which is why he watches Fox News all the time, because they never give him negative coverage. At least not anymore. They did in certain ways on the campaign trail, but now that he's president, they give him fawning praise, so that's why he loves them, because he loves that. He craves acceptance. He craves being praised. And so, in response, CNN has filed a lawsuit against Trump, Chief of Staff John Kelly, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications Bill Shine, and a Secret Service Director named Randolph Ailes, and there's also an anonymous Secret Service agent that's being sued. They don't want to reveal his identity. So, now there was a quote from Jeff Zucker, who's the president of CNN, and he said that this is not a step we have taken lightly, the lawsuit, but the White House, the White House action is unprecedented. And I'm not necessarily sure that that's true, because I have heard that there were cases in, I think, the 70s, according to what I read. I read a couple different articles on this. And so there are precedents for this, but my point to Trump and to everybody is I agree that it does set up a very dangerous precedent, because, you know, freedom of the press is one of the basic tenets of our Constitution, and yeah, if like I said, yeah, Jim Acosta was being a little bit of a jerk, but, you know, he's a member of the media. He has a right to be a jerk. Should he be a jerk in front of the president? No, but he has a right to do that, and one of the cornerstones of this country is freedom of the press, and we are one of the only countries remaining that have basically airtight freedom of the press and freedom of expression. You try, going to another country that is more authoritarian, like China, or even somewhere like Britain at times. Their free speech laws are totally just, how should I say, they're just so weak that they don't allow their citizens to express themselves without penalty of law. And I'm not saying that Trump is going to pass an executive order tomorrow revoking press credentials and just shutting down media outlets that he doesn't like. I'm just saying that this sets up a very dangerous precedent. So if a future president wanted to do that, he could say, oh, well, Trump did this, let me take this a step further. So now that's just speculation on my part, so it's not really all that fair of me to say that, but I do think it needs to be said. I think it's an important point because, it's, again, one of the founding principles of this country is freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. These are all basic tenets of our Constitution and our values, and although I think Trump, technically he does have a right to revoke the press credentials of people that, whoever he chooses, but I'm saying he shouldn't do it. Just because he has a right to do it, which some people are saying that he doesn't have a right to do it, he technically does, but I'm saying that he shouldn't do it because it does set a very dangerous precedent, and I think that he needs to realize that the media, they're not gonna like, they're never gonna like Trump. They're never gonna do it, and even going back to like the 80s and 90s, they never really have. Now, since he's the president and the most powerful man on the planet, they hate him even more, but they've always had disdain for Trump because, he's just not their type of, the media cares about decorum and how polite you are and whatever, which is why they loved Obama, because all Obama did was decorum and platitudes and cliches. And Trump isn't exactly like that, so they clutch their pearls and they go after him all the time. Now, some of their criticisms are valid. Some of them are definitely valid, but there are other things like talking about Melania Trump's headgear that do turn people off to networks like CNN and MSNBC, where they say, yeah, I guess Trump is kind of right that you guys do tend to do a lot of fake news. Because that part, there is some merit to that part, and you play right into their hand when you keep harping away on things like Stormy Daniels and the Russia issue. That gives merit, and you idiots don't understand that. And so there's improvements to be made on both sides here. Where yes, the media needs to be less elitist, less sensitive. I like. There was a recent interview with Jon Stewart and Dave Chappelle. They were interviewed by Christiane Amanpour, who is also from CNN, and Jon Stewart tore them a new one. He was saying, he said, "Look, you guys focus on all the stupid stuff, and there are people that are hurting in this country." And Jon Stewart was like, "I'm not concerned about Trump's insults. I'm concerned about his injuries." So obviously playing off the saying, adding insult to injury. He's like, Jon Stewart was like, "Yeah, I'm not concerned with his insults. I'm concerned with his injuries," and I totally agree on that part. So what the media needs to do, stop focusing on the stuff that doesn't mean anything and doesn't affect regular people, and maybe they'll trust you again. Because no matter if you're liberal, conservative, independent, anarchists like me, libertarians like all of us are to an extent, everybody hates the media, okay? Everybody does. So the only people that love it are the elites and the establishment. That's who loves, because that's who they represent.
Well,
so
the people listening to this media.
No, the mainstream media is what I'm
No,
talking about.
I get you.
But anyway, I'm done with my spiel. Matt, interject.
Yeah, it's funny because the advice that you gave to President Trump is the exact advice I would give to Jim Acosta. Grow up and be a man. I mean...
Oh, I agree.
He's sitting there grandstanding in front of the President of the United States. He has absolutely no right to be a jerk in front of him, no right to be a jerk to him. He's in the White House with a press pass that was given to him by the President, who has every right to take it away. And those are the rules, is you stand up, you ask your question, the President answers, and then you give the mic to the aide, they give it to another person. That's how it works. And President Trump answered the question about the caravan, and then Jim Acosta starts to grandstand and starts to push him and say, no, I'm not done. Answer more questions. And Trump says, no, I don't want to answer any more questions. Give it to the next person. Then the White House aide comes over and tries to grab it from Jim Acosta. Jim Acosta says, no, he puts his arm up, like, defending so she can't grab the mic. Like, how is that even, like, allowed, where the president tells the aide to go grab the mic, and some CNN reporter can just say, nope, I'm not done. I'm still using the mic. Like, if you look at it, like, he blocks her, like, 2 or 3 times, and then she just sits down. The aide just sits down, like, I don't know what to do. Like, he's not letting me grab it.
Right.
That's absolutely rude, and President Trump not only has the right to take away his press pass, he should. There's rules in that. And that's not a danger to freedom of the press. There are, like, 29 other CNN reporters that have press passes. Like, get over it. Jim Acosta was rude, and that's why he got the press pass taken, not because he works for CNN. So President Trump was actually right in that, and I hope that sets up a precedent that reporters can't just come in and be disrespectful to the president. I hate that. I absolutely hate it. I mean, like, I hate Obama's policies, but if I ever met President Obama, I would be totally respectful to him. I wouldn't just stand there and grandstand. I wouldn't press him on policies. I mean, it's especially if I'm in a set where there's rules. The main enemy to freedom of the press is the press itself, because what they're doing is they're coming out with actual fake news. And that's become like a joke to people. It's like, oh, fake news, blah, blah, blah. But there really is fake news. I mean, Elizabeth Warren comes out with her DNA test results, and like 5 left-leaning mainstream media outlets came out and said, oh my gosh, Elizabeth Warren vindicated. Now she can run for 2020. And, like, saying nothing about the fact that she is 1,024th Native American at, like, best.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Or, like, reporting the Brett Kavanaugh thing as if, like, oh, he's absolutely, like, a rapist. Like, come on, guys. Like, that's fake news. Like, report the facts, and that's it. Or reporting the Russia investigation, like, Donald Trump definitely colluded with the Russians, guys. Like, just on CNN, just bashing the president. That's not news. Especially when it's literally just, like, false. Like, the facts of what they're saying is just blatantly not true.
Right.
And what that's doing is that's allowing the president to come and punch them back. And while I don't think that this is entirely good for the country as a whole, I mean, imagine you were the president and what they're saying about you is horrible stuff like that every day that's false. And then half the country hates you more because of it. Like, I would be like, guys, that's not true. Like, I wouldn't just be like, you know, freedom of the press, they can bash me all they want. Yeah, they can just make half the country hate me because I ate steak with ketchup once. Like, I don't, it's literally
McDonald's on your airplane.
Yeah, it's becoming really, really ridiculous.
Yeah. Do we know what the lawsuit is trying to achieve? Like, is it, like, monetary damages, or...
I don't know what it's trying to achieve. I'm sure it's like to get his press pass back. Like they.
Yeah, they that's part of it. I don't think. Are they asking for any money?
I don't think so. I think
know.
it's just like you unlawfully took my press pass away. Where it's like.
Is there a law for that?
No, it's like you were given a press pass by the White House.
Yeah.
To go in and ask questions to the president under a specific set of rules. You broke the rules. You got it taken away. I mean, like. We're talking about entitled culture. I mean, Jim Acosta is pretty entitled if he just thinks he can go up there and literally block away a White House aide, grandstand in front of the president, waste like 5 minutes of everybody's time. And I don't see this as any threat at all, especially because these press interviews at the White House, like, are they really like accomplishing anything? I mean, it's part of these people's jobs, but it's like, what is it now? Jim Acosta can't go to the White House and ask Trump questions, so now he can't report, which means that nobody can report, which means no information is ever spread ever. Like, nothing's really going to change besides the fact that now we all see that Jim Acosta was rude to the president, and he made a fool out of himself. He really did.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the problems is that Paul Joseph Watson from InfoWars took the video, of Jim Acosta blocking away the aid and zoomed in on it, and posted it on Twitter as like a, look, Jim Acosta like pushed a woman, because he did, like, it wasn't, I wouldn't call it any type of assault, I wouldn't call it like anything horrible, but like, he did put his arm up, she went to reach the mic, and he pushed her arm down, which like, that's not like a good thing to do, especially to a White House aide, like, come on now. And then literally, like, immediately CNN came out and said InfoWars uses doctored video in order to show Jim Acosta falsely hitting. I'm like, it's literally just zoomed in.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Quote doctored.
Yeah, like, I cannot. So many like media outlets came out and were talking about how it was doctored, and it's because Sarah Huckabee Sanders retweeted it. That everyone got like all up in arms.
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
everyone was like, "Oh, the White House sent out this doctored video."
Yeah,
but like, you know,
it's like, it's not doctored, it's zoomed in, and then Trump was like forced to say that. It's like, come on, like, zooming in is not doctored. Like, what he did, he did. He literally pushed the aide's arm down. There's no way around that.
I just got to get this question in. So this is a question for Matt. So do you think that because I said that I'm worried that it would set a dangerous precedent. So do you think that my worries are basically unfounded, or what do you think about that? Like that this particular action by the Trump administration would set a dangerous precedent in the future?
No, I think it sets a good precedent that grandstanding in front of the president under a set of rules, being rude to the president of the United States, and literally pushing away a White House aide, like, sorry, you can't come back in and ask questions anymore.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah,
I think
I hope that future presidents does that. Like, if what
I half agree with that. Yeah,
gosh, I don't want to even say a name of any person ever.
yeah, because it might happen.
Gary Johnson, because that's never gonna happen.
Gary Johnson.
If Gary Johnson's
Right.
ever president, and some people are up there grandstanding with him, I hope that he takes away their White House pass. I hope this sets a precedent that you cannot just like break the rules of the White House and get away with it.
It's gonna be like, well, you know, you probably can you cut that out. Let's you know, move on to somebody else.
The response would be different. Instead of like, Jim, you're rude. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
Yeah. Now, Jordan, your worries before we move on to the next topic, real quick. I think what may be the problem is, like, under this set of rules that Matt's talking about, right? This behavior is unacceptable. Like, when...
Right, understood.
Yeah. Now, when the rules get a little bit oppressive, and then you act out against them in a similar way that Jim Acosta did, then you may actually be justified in acting out against them. But that's after you get to the point of analyzing the rules and saying, are these rules actually just? Are these rules, you know?
I mean, it's in the White House.
Yeah.
If Trump was like, no, you know what, CNN, you're not allowed to be a thing anymore because Jim Acosta was mean to me, then yes, dangerous precedent, awful. You just violated the First Amendment. Like,
Right.
if you
Yeah,
do
that's
that,
a fair point.
impeachment,
That's a
but-
fair point.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. It also doesn't have to be Jim Acosta again.
Right.
Yeah, like anybody, like just Fox News, you're off the air now because I don't like Tucker Carlson. I don't know. That's violating the First Amendment, possible impeachment. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is someone walked into the White House, who was invited to the White House, or given permission to come to the White House. He was rude, broke the rules, and now he's not allowed.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
All right, so we'll move on. You said Tucker Carlson. That's sort of similar to the next topic. I know a lot of people think he's like a white supremacist or something.
He's not a white supremacist.
I mean, he's not.
he's a very smart guy. I like him in a lot of ways, but I disagree with him on a lot of policies. Anyway,
Yeah. So
nothing to do with the topic.
Yeah. No. So this is we're gonna start talking about the broader topic of nationalism, and something recent also came up related to that.
Yeah. So the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, at like a World War I memorial that Trump was invited to, started bashing the president. So Trump didn't show up one day because it was raining too much, so his helicopter couldn't get there. It was a whole big mess. There's like a tweet that the French people the French government put out. It's just like, see rain. There's rain, no problem. And it's I don't know who it was. It was like a Marine like
I don't think
throwing. It's like, come on.
the French shouldn't be bragging about toughing out the rain. Okay.
Yeah, and there were like rumors that it was like Trump didn't go because he didn't want to get his hair wet, and it's just like, come on. Stop it.
Yeah, if they work more than 30 hours a week,
Yeah.
they throw fruit in the streets.
And then Trump went the next day to a different cemetery, and it was still raining, and he went there with, like, out an umbrella or anything, just, like, to be like, it's not because, like, I don't want my hair wet. Like, that's stupid. Come on. But anyway, that's not even the point of the topic. So Macron bashed Trump, and he basically said that nationalism is bad, patriotism's good. And not only that, but they're direct opposites. That they're mutually exclusive and they're direct opposites. And it was a direct swing at President Trump's, America First policy. He said stuff like, once you start putting your own country's interests ahead of, like, everybody else, that's when you get rid of your moral values about, like, caring about other people and helping other people. And it's just like, ugh, gosh.
Yeah.
First of all, you could be a patriot and you could be a nationalist at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. They're different terms. Patriotism is, like, love for one's country. Nationalism is, like, putting your country first. Like, there's a difference between them, but you could be both. Nationalism isn't, like, inherently a good thing. It's not inherently a bad thing. I mean, if you're a bad leader ruling a bad country in a bad way, and you're like, I'm going to put this bad country first, then that's bad. But, like, Trump's America First, where it's just like, when it comes to trade policy, I'm going to take care of my people first. Like, that's not a bad thing. Or it's just like, I'm going to promote my people's values over the values of other countries, the freedom of the press, freedom of speech, like, those things come first. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. By definition of nationalist, I would kind of be a nationalist. When it comes to making policy, I think the President of the United States should put his own country first, not other people's. We see, like, the decline of a lot of European nations because they're not a fan of that. Most of them are a fan of, like, one joint European coalition.
Yeah.
They talked about having one joint European army. That's
also from Macron. Macron also suggested that.
Yeah.
Emmanuel, my thoughts are too complex for journalists, Macron.
Open borders, open trade between, not like open trade, but like one currency between all the European states.
Right.
And a lot's declining. Like, their cultural values, their moral, they're experiencing a lot of moral decay within their country. Like, that's why Brexit happened. Like, the value of the euro is, like, dangerously low. Their GDP growth is not as good as it used to be. So when you're acting in the interest of other states and putting them in front of your own people, that's a bad thing. I'd rather be, and I'm going to use this term and define it very specifically because it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. Globalist is a term, like a trigger word for everybody because it means something different to everybody. Globalization really, like, in the normal sense would be like economic globalization, like free trade. I'm all for that. For economic globalization. But the type of globalization that Trump uses a lot, or that, as we were talking about before, like Paul Joseph Watson, or Tucker Carlson, or Laura Ingraham, the way that they use it is like political globalism, where, more open borders, more like, we all take care of each other. Like, I rule my government, but, like, I'm here to help everybody, not just my people. Like, if the Germans need help, I'll help them before I help my own people. It's just
sort of the difference between globalization and globalism. One of them is more economic, one of them is more political.
Yeah. So, see, I hate this. Like, can we have different? Like, can we actually have different words for them? Because when you say globalization, people always assume, like, the wrong one.
Right.
Right. What's that rule called? Where it's just like, if you have two choices and you pick one, like, you always pick wrong. Oh gosh.
But it's like it's like the same confusion over, like, social democracy versus democratic socialism. That's kind of a similar thing.
Yeah.
Where there's where now, like, they're two separate things but used interchangeably now. So it's like, oh my god.
Sort of confusing people.
Yeah.
All the linguistic confusions.
So Trump's point is that he would rather be a nationalist than a political globalist. He would rather put his country first than have complete open borders, than have he's the president of the United States, but his job is to help the people of other countries, even if it means putting them before the American people. And I don't think that's wrong. I'm a patriot, and in that sense, I'm a nationalist. I mean, there are other people who are nationalists who are bad people in bad countries. I mean, like, Hitler was a nationalist, so to say things like, all nationalists are good, all nationalists are bad, like, the words gotten really like positive connotation among populists, and then like super negative connotations among like liberals, like all the people who like daily on a daily basis compare Trump to Hitler. If you say nationalist, they're like, oh my gosh, see, I told you he's Hitler.
Hashtag Orange Man bad.
So that's why like this is like an important topic to talk about because it's like ideological, it's in the current events, but also like we need to like get our definitions straight.
Right.
Patriotism is love of one's country, and nationalism is putting your own country first, which is not wrong.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jordan?
Yeah. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this because I am not necessarily a nationalist, but so there's not really much point. But I think what I will say is I'm not like for completely open borders. I think obviously I've talked about my beliefs before on like statism and things like that, but we have a state, the state exists, yes, you should protect the border. I think I've gone through that before. The state exists, you should definitely protect your border, and I have no problem with that. And I don't really even have a problem with nationalism or patriotism unless you are a person that if somebody else like if I was talking to somebody and they tried to make me feel bad for not being nationalistic or patriotic, that's when it gets, that's when it would really irk me. But normally I don't have a problem with it. It's your life, your decision. By all means, if you want to be a nationalist, go ahead. If you want to be a patriot, go ahead. I consider myself somewhat of a patriot, not necessarily a nationalist, but definitely pretty patriotic as far as trying to implement policy or advocate for the implementation of policies that I think would help the American people. So I think that a lot of what Matt said was correct. I think obviously, like I said, there's a lot of disagreement just in the general conversation about nationalism. I do have a lot of disagreements, but I think Matt's points were pretty logical as far as if somebody was to consider themselves a nationalist, those are perfectly legitimate points to make. If you are a nationalist and concerned about preserving the needs of your own country, which I think is great because institutions like the EU, like somebody in Brussels gets to make the decisions, about what goes on in Germany and France and Ireland, I guess. It's like that shouldn't happen. So I would say that I'm half in agreement with Matt on this. So
a lot of the times in a social justice context or like an altruistic context, you'll hear like you have to make sure your own cup is full before you can fill the cups of others type of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Make sure you take care of yourself and take care of your own before you have the means to, spend your entire everything.
I got a biblical.
Be awful.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure people get their definition straight. Like Macron does not, and it's affecting our daily lives, and I think that's awful. I think we need to correct that.
Yeah. That starts one day at a time. Every little bits and pieces.
Let's
here
start
and there.
today.
Well, we'll go on out and start today. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back. Probably not again next week. I know I'll probably be gone.
No, I'm gonna be gone by
It's
then.
the day
Alright.
before Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Early
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
happy Thanksgiving, guys.
We may need to do a Thanksgiving episode after that.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
We'll talk about turkey.
We'll talk about turkey. Talk about the historical context behind everything Thanksgiving. Maybe. But
Ham is
otherwise-
better than turkey. We're
ham-
gonna have that debate.
Well, okay. All right. Well,
Guys.
thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.